Now, apart from anything else, the way the papers are looking at some of the stuff this morning, the Sun have got royal fallout exclusive, a Megxit minefield, rift is diplomatic nightmare for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee planners. Now, we spoke, I think, to Andrew Rossendale a few weeks ago about the Platinum Jubilee plans for next year that the Queen is putting together. And obviously now with Harry and Meghan and effectively exiting the royal family after, in what my view is them being fired last week by the Queen, it makes it all a bit tricky. Let's find out from Angela Levin what's going on. Angela, very good afternoon to you.
Hello.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm sorry we haven't spoken to you since all of this happened. I mean, it was a sort of flurry of activity last week, wasn't it? Almost every day there was a new story coming out about Harry and Meghan, culminating, of course, with their final ignominy, where they issued the great words, we can all be of service, which I thought was the biggest insult of all, really.
Yes.
I mean,
also, it's interesting that all around the world is just as interested too. It's extraordinary how keen they are to hear what's going on.
But I mean, why? I mean, I know that we probably should have remembered that the year was going to come and go, and at that point the Queen was going to sort of reassess their role and what they wanted to do, perhaps with a view to them coming back. But I mean, I presume that was not really very much of a hope.
No, absolutely wasn't. The Queen was very clear, and she did it very kindly. She split herself in two, and she was the monarch at all these levels of that you've got to comply with the rules, and on the other hand, a compassionate grandmother who loves Harry dearly and welcomed Meghan into the royal family. And I thought, like she usually does, she did it extremely well. But Harry and Meghan seem to have several blind spots. And one is that they can tell everybody else how to live their lives. They can be very rude as much as they want to, but other people can't do that. And I think they felt that they would win all the way through, and they haven't.
No.
And they've put the Queen in a very, very difficult position, of course. I mean, the timing is atrocious. You can't see what the rush is. Everything's got to be in a rush for their timetable, not for the Queen. And the monarchy moves slowly. But some people have said, and I'm not saying that too, but some people have said they chose a time when the Queen was at her most vulnerable, and that's unusual for her. And that is when her husband is in hospital and nearly 100.
Yes.
And they took advantage, but, she's tough, she's strong, and she has this incredible sense of duty that's been there ever since she was made Queen.
Well, this is it. And then when they talk about duty, they have no idea really of what they're saying, do they? Because they haven't really done very much. I mean, it's all very well for them to go to Africa and bleat on about how difficult their lives are while sort of, driving around a fleet of Land Rovers and talking to people who are terribly poor. But, I mean, it's not as if they've made any great commitment to anything. They've been in LA now for, a year or maybe 6 months or 8 months or something. They've been to a homeless shelter. They've done a food bank. They've done all the stuff that sort of Kay Burley does, to try and rehabilitate themselves. But in effect, they haven't even really got a proper foundation, have they?
Well, actually, I half agree and half disagree with you.
It's often the way with my opinions.
I wrote his biography, as you know.
Yeah.
And he was brought up with a sense of duty. Diana absolutely instilled it into them, both he and William, of course. From the age of 2, he understood it, he knew it, it's in his blood. And when we had one of our conversations, he said, although he wanted to go away and live in Africa and look after endangered species of animals, when his grandmother stepped back from a lot of duties when she was in her 90s, she asked him if he would take on some of these engagements and patronages.
Right.
And he said he decided that his role was to support her. The other part of his sense of duty was his brother for the future, and he wanted to maintain that. Of course, having met the love of his life, it's quite understandable that certain things change, but you have to ask yourself, why has he completely changed? Why has he seemed to have lost his compassion? Why is he so determined to win and have the last word? My answer to my own question is Meghan insisting that he does what she tells him? Or is he like a second-degree wild teenager who's...
Well, do you know, it's funny. I actually get the impression, Angela, we've just lost you there for a moment. We'll try and get you back. I actually get the impression that he's sort of being gaslit or gaslighted by her to the point where she's kind of preying on what are his vulnerabilities, which is what people who gaslight other people do. That she's basically picked up on the fact that he's clearly quite damaged in the sense that he lost his mother when he was quite young. Everybody remembers that terrible day when he and William had to walk behind the coffin at the state funeral. And the problem is that she's kind of feeding him on that and making out that he should be angry with the royal family. And I think that's what's happened. I think she's effectively turned him into someone who not only resents the media, which he clearly does, and, you know, I can't say I maybe blame him for that, but he doesn't just resent the media. I think he resents the structure within which he was brought up, because she's clearly spending every single minute of every single day basically telling him that they've treated him badly, that somehow he should have been further up the pecking order, that somehow he should have been the guy waiting to be king, when in fact that's not the way it works, because of course Charles is next in line for the throne, followed by William. And followed by that is the kids that William and Kate have. So we don't have a situation whatsoever whereby Harry is anywhere near the throne. And people have actually said already this weekend, perhaps it's time that Harry made a proper statement about his future intentions, i.e., could he actually say that he never wants to be king, and could he give up his kind of role as a son and heir? Trying to find out if Angela's there.
Yes, I am.
Oh, you are? Good. Sorry.
Yes.
I mean,
somebody obviously didn't like what I was saying.
No, I mean, they've obviously got to you, haven't they? So
yes.
Let's carry on without, unfortunately, seeing you. Never mind. So, I mean, could it be that what I've basically just been explaining is that she's kind of feeding him this narrative that not only should he be angry about the way the media treated his mother, but he should be angry about the way the royal family treated his mother, and he's kind of angry now with everybody else.
Yes, I think Meghan was surprised by his lowly position, which meant that she had a lowly position. Right. She felt that she would know. She's very quick at learning, and she knows how things should run.
Yes.
And she wanted to run it. She wanted a front seat, and she wanted to tell the royal family how to run their lives. Now, she wasn't even there 2 years, and anybody with any common sense would think that you would have to spend a minimum of 2 or 3 years to understand a different country, a different way of life, the protocols, what's expected of you. Most people who have a new job or a new life, you know, take their time to understand it, but she didn't want to. She felt she didn't like all the protocols that she was told. Harry told me that he gave her a very thorough education of what would be expected of her and
he
how
must
her
have done,
life
mustn't
would
he?
be. Well, he did. He said that. Why would he say that? His other girlfriends ditched him because they didn't like the publicity and they couldn't face it. But with Meghan, she said she was fine with all that. You know, she was used to cameras snapping.
Which wasn't entirely correct, because half of the time when she went anywhere, nobody knew who she was. I mean, seriously, I mean, I'd never heard of Meghan Markle until she started dating Harry.
Neither had I, but she'd been to various do's and had her picture taken on a red carpet. So let's give her that one. But what she didn't understand was that you are under the spotlight 24/7, and you have to go along with it. But
although you don't have to be, though. I mean, look at Charles, for example. I mean, Charles, who was in the news this weekend because he went to visit his father, Prince Philip, in hospital, and some people rather small-mindedly were like, well, how come he can go and visit his relatives and we can't? You know, which is not entirely correct, one. But also, Charles is not in the papers every single day. I mean, he does what he wants to do. He speaks when he wants to speak. He doesn't get hounded by the photographers or anything, and neither would Harry.
Yeah, it is ridiculous, isn't it? Because also, certainly Meghan hates how the royal family was, hates the British way of life. It's too small. It's not a big enough platform for her. So why want to hang on to the titles of something you like, you dislike? You can completely get away from it and be free. We're finding freedom. They had lots of freedom. They have it now. But instead of that, he's employed at least 12 PR people who flood the media with what they're doing, what they're going to do, how much they're going to do, where they're going to be. A lot of it is speculation about the future, but some of it is now. And one thing after another, and their timing always seem to be when something happens.
It's always wrong, isn't it? You always think, have they done this? Have they done this deliberately to kind of to take away the focus from either is it William or Kate, or take away the focus from the Queen, take away the focus from Charles? But certainly it was not the best timing to make out that somehow they'd been hard done by when Prince Philip was taken to hospital.
Quite right. But actually, what's coming up, the Oprah interview, it's going to be shown on the same day as the Commonwealth Trust. Now, because of coronavirus, there's not a big meeting, so the Queen is going to talk, and other senior members within the Commonwealth are going to talk as well. Harry and Meghan are excluded from that because they no longer have the patronages they had about the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
Why do it on that day? Harry obviously knew about it. He seems either very weak or very changed. As I said before, I was rudely cut off.
Right.
But I think a lot will depend on how the Oprah interview goes. I mean, Meghan is saying for her, it's the loudest way to get her voice back, because being part of the royal family didn't give her a voice.
Yeah, but this is why I find it all so extraordinary. She didn't have a voice before that.
Exactly.
I mean, what was she talking about? I mean, I searched myself to go back to when Meghan was simply Meghan, and she had this great crusade to save the world. I can't find it.
Yes, that's completely right. Yeah. But it's a sort of moan. When it was in South Africa and she did her victim speech, no one asked me how I am. Right. And now it's, I have to speak my voice. I think there's something very strange about that, because she has been speaking her voice all the time. Every time she went on a royal engagement, she spoke her voice. She did only the one she wanted to. The Queen was trying to let her follow what she really enjoyed.
Yeah.
So this is a complete nonsense. I mean, what I hope dramatically is that she doesn't start attacking the royal family. I think it would do her very badly publicity-wise, but I also think it's just not the right time. William is upset, Prince Charles will be upset, everyone's worried about Prince Philip. The Queen is nearly 95, he's nearly 100. Please, try and be a bit restrained on that.
Well, that's right. And is there any sign that that Harry is going to come and see Prince Philip while he's in hospital? I mean, heaven forbid that he doesn't come out of the hospital, but it's something to think about. You would think that if he was able to, he would come and visit him, wouldn't he?
Well, last week we heard that he'd gone into isolation so that he could fly over if necessary without having to go to isolation in this country.
Right.
However, it was then revealed that was the time that they were doing the interview with Oprah.
Right.
Now, he's not very much part of it. He comes on the end, I think. It's mainly Meghan talking about being a mother and the royals and all that. But I suppose, I really hope it doesn't happen, but if something does happen, that he will fly over. I don't think Meghan will, but that's in a way understandable. But it's just so awkward to be with your family when there is this terrible row growing over your decision to move away.
Well, right. And that's the thing, she will do, I'm sure, what you and I would expect her to do, which is not to completely and utterly, throw the royal family under the bus. But what she will do is she'll sit there, flashing her eyelashes and, sort of looking demure and talking in that kind of passive-aggressive way that she talks about how she never was made to feel welcome and, she was always seen as an outsider. Yeah. And it'll be all that kind of thing, won't it? Which will make the royal family look bad without necessarily having a sort of killer reason why she hates them.
Yes, she's very good at that. But what's very interesting and along that line is the fact that little baby Archie is being photographed at home,
Yes.
and he will be part of the interview. Now, if that's not invading his privacy, I don't know what is.
Right.
It's okay if they do it, but not otherwise. You know, it wasn't all right, and she took legal action against a photographer who took his picture when he was in one of those baby carrying
I remember
things
that, yeah.
against his mother, with his face in his mother's chest.
Right.
You could only see him from the back, but she said it was an invasion of his privacy.
Right.
Now it's fine.
Well, even though she's put...
sent him millions.
Yeah, well, this is after they put his face on the front of the Christmas card, right?
Yes, but that face was very strange. He looked about 4 or 5, and also it was coloured in, so you couldn't actually see that properly.
Yes, it was a sort of painting of a picture, wasn't it?
Yes, I don't really see that as being anybody. I think that South Africa was the last time we saw him, a little tiny child. And it's so sad that he hasn't seen his paternal grandparents for what they are. You know, a small baby looking on Zoom will think everybody stops at their waist level, you know.
I know, that's a very good point, actually. I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day about this who'd had a baby recently, and she said that, you know, her baby hasn't really seen anyone because he was born in the last year, and therefore nobody's really been able to pay any visits to him, and he doesn't really know what other people look like. I mean, it's terrible.
Yes, I think it's a real shame, and we now know that for the summer, when there's so many hopefully celebrations, the Queen will be 75. It'll be her official birthday, but really, most important of all, they are showing the sculpture of Diana, their mother, who they decided to discuss and bring into fruition in 2017. Both brothers discussed it at great length. They didn't agree, and then eventually they worked out what they wanted to do. So it's the celebration of this sculpture, and it could easily turn into something that is extremely uncomfortable.
Yes.
I feel sorry for both brothers because it will bring all their feelings back, and they adore their mother and say they think of her every single day. Now, this is something Harry's probably going to do on his own because his wife won't be with him, and I think that's a shame because he will need support at that time. It's very, very moving and sad.
And the woman he claims to be the love of his life doesn't want to be with him at the time when he's doing something very important with the woman who was his mother, who was also probably the love of his life. It seems like he's got a detached view of the world going on, because it means he effectively has to have a double life, doesn't he?
Yes, I think he does have a double life. He's between a rock and a hard place, between his inheritance and his family and his desperation to keep Meghan happy. And I think it's an unenviable position to be in, and I feel very sorry for him. I liked him enormously when I interviewed him. He was charismatic, lively, bright, little mischievous glint in the eye, but now he just seems very, very tense, apart from that stage photograph of announcing that she was pregnant for the third time. Unluckily, she had a miscarriage, and he was gazing into her eyes and she was gazing into him, but that was fixed. That was like a magazine piece that taken.
I mean, the idea that this photographer set up an iPad to take the picture, it tells you everything you need to know. You know, it's not a spontaneous picture at all. It was a plotted picture. It was a style. Everything she does is styled, right? She's probably got a stylist in to do it. They've probably got about 55 different versions of it, and that's the one she chose because that's how she does business. But tell us.
And also,
go on. Sorry.
Where was Archie?
Well, exactly.
I mean, if it was all family stuff, where was the little boy?
Yeah, quite exactly right. Good point. What can you tell us about Prince Philip and what we think his ailment is at the moment?
Well, we don't know. I mean, he's been in and out of hospital over quite a few years for various things, which you can't understand when somebody's nearly 100. We've got no idea exactly what it is, but they have been, the palace has been very determined to say it's the security reasons, you know, it's to make sure he is okay. And he did walk in quite sprightly. I watched him walk into the hospital. So I think that that's a positive sign. But a slightly more worrying one was that when Prince Charles left yesterday, having travelled a very long way from his country home.
Yeah.
He looked as if he had tears in his eyes. He really did. Now, that could have been a fly had gone in it, or it could have been just being very moved by seeing his father. So we don't know. But luckily, we didn't hear anything else last night, and we haven't, as far as I know, heard anything yet this morning.
No.
So
but
no
some
news
were
is
saying
good news
the fact,
in a way.
yeah, in a way, yes, but also the fact that Charles went back to the house a long way away might be an encouraging sign, because he didn't feel the need to stay close.
Yes, I think he would have stayed in London if he was very concerned.
Yeah.
And Prince Philip, of course, doesn't like any fuss. He doesn't want to be patronised or people fussing about him with the blankets and the pillows. You know, he's a very strong, determined, independent man, and he wouldn't have liked that. So. But I can't help thinking that he would have been very pleased to see Charles there. They've had a difficult relationship all their lives, and he didn't feel Charles was up to the mark. He was too soft and sensitive. But I think he's really proven himself over these last few years, and especially since he's married Camilla. And I hope they are getting on better, because at this time of life, for both of them actually, you want to try and smooth things over. And I think Charles maybe did that to show that he really cared, whereas Harry can't take those sort of steps. Kate would, of course, have been 100%. Camilla would, of course, have been 100% behind Prince Charles and encouraged him and enthused for it. But
although her name wasn't included, was it, in the message from Buckingham Palace on the news that they were having another child? Her name was interestingly absent.
So I believe were Williams and Kate.
Yes.
They just said everyone in the family. There's two reasons for that. One is that they sprung the notice on the royal family, so they didn't have the time to do a proper announcement. Everything is slow there. They are careful to follow the right protocols, some of which are very boring, but that's the way they work, and they need to know in advance, and they should have known in advance before it's announced when the announcement was going to be. And the other one was just that they asked to be left off. I doubt that that's the reason, though, because they are, Kate, William and Camilla follow the rules. That perhaps they couldn't get in touch with them at that moment, and it was very important they put out an announcement very quickly to reassure everyone that they were pleased. And the Queen says that all the time, you know, whatever they decide to do, even if they can't do any duties for royals, that they are much loved. And she does keep saying that, poor woman.
I know.
And I feel immensely sad. She loved Harry. They were full of fun together. The Queen's a wonderful comedian when she's relaxed. And they laughed and did jokes which Harry loved. You know, he's got that extra sparkle which endeared him to so many. And without that, it must be a big gap in her life.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. Angela, great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Sorry for the earlier miscommunication where we lost the video of Angela. But Angela Levin, royal biographer, there, talking about how sad it is, because it is for the Queen. Will be very sad about what's going on with Harry at the moment. And when he comes back, it'll be very tricky. And when he is here, it'll be very difficult and it'll be very awkward, because he won't bring his wife with him and he won't bring his son with him. And I think there will obviously be a massive elephant in the room wherever they are.